Okay, it's been a while, so it's just a quick little video, like a looping tunnel. We're going to be using some Blender, bring it to Ventuz, so let's get started. So just quick preview of what we're going to be creating. You know, if it doesn't really interest you, you can skip this. Maybe some of the techniques you might want to apply or learn. But what we're going to do is bring an animated camera in from Blender into Ventuz. We're looking at it from this point of view. As you can see, we've got this geometry and we've got some lights and materials in there. And it's just a looping tunnel. And I mean, we can play later on. We'll play around with all the like extra effects and getting different looks as well. What we can do with it. You can create all these additional stuff. Perhaps you want to go for just sprites and get this cool going through this. But yeah, we'll cover some of this after. So I'm just gonna close this blank scene. So this is a blank empty scene ready for us to create. I'm gonna jump into Blender. Let's get started. So when you start a new Blender scene, you get the camera, the cube, and the sunlight. We're gonna just delete all of this, and what we're gonna do is add a new curve. So we're gonna add a Bezier curve circle. This is what we're gonna. This is gonna be our looping tunnel path. I'm gonna scale this up. It's fairly big. You can play around with the scale. We're also gonna add in a camera. And now if I hit N, it'll pop up this little transform menu, this little sidebar. You might have it already open. And what we're going to do is just view the camera itself. So item and then should I click on the camera and the property, is it properties or rotation? So there you go. You can see the rotations here. They're a bit funny. So I'm going to just set these to 0, 0, and set this to 90. I'm not sure why those values are always like that when you create a new camera. I'll just reset those so that I have pointed one way. I'm going to do a vertical split. So on one view, so I want to see, this is what the camera sees. So I'm going to hit 0 to see the camera view, and this is my working. Turn that side menu off. So N is a shortcut to hide that side menu. Anyway, so we've got a camera and we want it to follow this path. So select your camera, go to under constraints. So here we want to add a constraint and say follow path, and we're going to select the target as the Bezier curve. Now if I change the offset, as you can see, it follows it, however it's not pointing in the direction. So all you'd have to do is hit follow curve, and now follow the curve. As you can see, now it's viewing that. And we can see it here as well. This is the camera's point of view here. Check that offset. This is what the camera sees. Now, because it's pretty boring that we're just going in circles, so what we can do is just hit edit mode on the curve, the Bezier curve, and now we can make this go up. And have this go a little bit down, and it goes this way here, slightly upwards. So on, and you can add to this. So it's almost like a Pringle. We got a Pringle here. If you want, you can add more subdivisions to this. If you want it, so just subdivide, then you can add more. You can make it a bit more fancy if you wanted a more interesting tunnel. However, I'm just gonna leave it as it is with just 4 for now. We'll go for the Pringle. I'll call it a Pringle. Okay. So I'll select the camera. And I'll say, okay, I want to have this animate, through along this path. So let's get the animation out of the way. It's really simple. So I'll start this keyframe, set the offset to 0, set a key. Go to the end of the keyframe, set a key, set this to -100. So I want to go forward, set a key. So now if I hit play, you'll notice the camera animates along the path. Yeah. Which is what we want. However, you notice here it slows down and speeds up. So what we want to do is just interpolate those keyframes. So if I go into the timeline, select all my keyframes are already selected, which is nice because I have the camera selected here. Just go here, interpolate mode, and set that to linear. So now you notice when we get, if I speed it up and then hit play, so we're near the end, you notice it doesn't slow down now. It's just a consistent speed. That just makes it work better for a loop. Send it to linear. Okay. So we've got our camera. Now we need the mesh and the geometry that we're going to bring in. So select that curve and stop the animation. Shift D, duplicate. So now we have that. We're going to say add. Go here to the spline. Now add depth to this. So add the geometry. And what we can do is just say shape flat. So now you can see the inside of the camera. If we animate, there you go. And we can change some of the camera settings as well. So if you want to change some of those camera properties, for example, you want to change that field of view here. Perhaps you want to rotate it slightly more. So we're going to wireframe and go at the top, and just rotate this in a little. Now we can pan in that way. If I hit play, got this kind of cool tunnel effect. As you can see, we're traveling through. Looks nice. Now the mesh itself, let's make this a little bit more interesting. So click on the mesh. What we want to do is, what I'm going to actually do is just going to right click and just change this mesh to convert this to a mesh, because right now it's a spline. Now we converted it to a mesh. And we add a modifier, and what we're going to do is add the decimate, and also going to add the wireframe. Okay, under the wireframe, just change where it says replace original, just uncheck that. So now we have the original width of wireframe. You can change that thickness. There you go. With the decimate, all we're going to do is reduce that, and now we get this cool triangulated look. If you want, you can turn triangles on or turn it off. It depends on the look you're looking for. You can go for the quad look or that. I kind of like this look here, and then just lowering the tessellation. That's really up to you. But as you can see, if I come here and now we press play, and we've got this cool mesh that we can go through, travel through, and it's just looping. And of course, you can tweak that that spline, but just remember, before you convert this to a mesh, make sure you're happy with your spline, or have a duplicate. Anyway, so we have our mesh ready, we have our spline animated, our camera, and all we have to do is just export. So file, export. I'm going to say FBX. The reason I say FBX is because what it does is it bakes the animation. So make sure on the options you have bake animation, which will bake that animation for the camera. Also make sure you apply modifiers. So you see after the modifiers applied with the decimate and the wireframe, however I didn't apply them. So in the FBX settings, there's a checkbox for apply modifiers. When it's exporting, you apply that modifier for you. I'm going to save this into my stuff folder. So here, and what I'll do is just overwrite the existing one I've done already. So this tunnel loop, so the one that I showed you at the start, I'll just export that, and that'll just overwrite this. So we're using this one that we've just created. It should have been exported now. Shouldn't take more long. So now we've got empty Ventuz scene. What you do is go to the location you've saved your FBX and drag that FBX into your Ventuz scene. Now you'll say, oh well, this doesn't look like my Blender scene right now. So what you have to do is switch to the camera, because right now we're using the default camera view. And to see that camera view, you can either click here on your layer, you can click on the layer of 3D root where it says camera normal. If you click that drop down, you can change that to camera, which is that camera there, which is called camera as well, as you can see, and it has the animation attached to the axis, which has been baked. So if you click on your timeline, you can see all these keyframes are baked. And if I hit play, It looks like it's going backwards, which that's fine. We can fix that. It's not exactly the same, but we'll see. We'll fix that in a second. So to fix this, we'll use a simple controller. Okay, we're gonna take that control and drop it in there. Now we have a 0 to 100. So now if I want to go in the other direction, what I'll do is 100 to 0. Okay, and we're going to use this as a mover. And we're going to drop the progress to the mover. We're going to change some settings on this mover. So turn swing off. The minimum will be 100 and the maximum will be 0. So now we're going in the right direction we want. Now you can slow the duration down, so if you want it to be 20 seconds or whatever. You may notice there's some slight differences with the camera positioning, but you can tweak this. So if you click on the camera itself and go to the projection view, here you can tilt the camera or roll it or pan. You can adjust the pan, so now you can see more of that wall on the left. You can also play around with the field of view, as you can see. So you can get this kind of cool effect here, or you can get really close, and you can play around with that and tweak those cameras. There you go, until you're happy with that. Like that kind of looks cool. But you can see how simple it is. We bake the keyframes by exporting as FPX. Now say I want to light this tunnel up, and I want to use like a point light, for example. So if I apply a point light in front, it'll be very difficult for me to to try to line these up. So if I click on here, let's go back to default for a second. So back to default, and I'll just turn that light off so you can see. So if we turn that point light on and I click the cone, this is where the point light is. However, it's not really helping us. So I can increase that gain and that range. That'll light the whole scene up, but we want it to follow the path as well. So what I can do is take the X, Y, and Z positions and shift select the camera axis that has the keyframe on it. And what we're going to do is link the two together. So I'm going to say the X position goes to the X, the Y position goes to the Y, the Z position goes to the Z. And now as you can see, because I turned the show non-rendered objects on, this just showing you where the point light is, but it now follows the camera's position. Okay, so now we can switch back to our camera view and just reduce that gain and that range, and now you can increase that range, and you can see how much of that tunnel you want to light up around that corner. There you go. And you can see if I change the color light, it affects the it's the actual light that's lighting that scene. You can now go in and play around with adding materials and textures. Play around with putting PBR materials in there if you wanted, and adding bumps and make it all metallic or whatever you wanted really. I'm not going to cover that. I've covered those in other videos, so I'll keep it really short. So let's just quickly make this, just add a texture. I'm going to say a base texture, and then I'll just choose a random texture for now. So I've just got this I'll just go for this blurred one. And what I'm going to do is just change the UVs to 3D, model position, or camera world reflection, it doesn't matter. Make sure I have wrap on. There you go. You can play around with the scale and so on. You just get the idea, just to help you understand. Like, you can play around with that. I've covered other videos about putting materials and stuff on there. Whenever I want, I can change the lighting. There you go. Can use even just get a HSV and a mover. Take that diffuse lighting there. Say okay, I want to change the hue, and the hue is from 0 to 255. And I want to slow that duration down over. There you go. Over whatever's how many seconds you want. And we have a looping tunnel in Ventuz. You see we've got all these cool effects. Just really simple, just textures. Of course you can make this more interesting. you know, add all these effects and stuff, or you can animate textures using the UV mapping along the geometry. Entirely up to you to experiment and try it out. However, you can add some post effects if you wanted to go to the layer itself. Say maybe I want to add some distortion, and then I like to add, I like the barrel. I like the barrel effect. There you go. Add the barrel, maybe add some glare in here. Let's see. But yeah, hopefully that's some use to you. I don't know, maybe you wanted to just know how to bring animated cameras in from Blender to Ventuz. FBX is a really good way of doing it. Makes the keyframes. You do have a lot of keyframes, but you know, you simplify it with simple control, and you can use a mover, or you could keyframe that 0 to 100, so it's just a lot easier than managing all those keys. But yeah, it's kind of cool. And of course you have control of that duration, so you can go slower, 50 seconds or whatever, you know, faster, and you can play around with those textures. Really is, you know, it's up to you. You also have specular lighting and, you know, all sorts. We'll adjust that range. We don't know what's around that corner. It's up to you. You can also, I don't have shadows turned on. You can turn shadows on. I don't think you'll see much going on here with the shadows. So really, it'll just be casting on itself. It'll be really subtle. I'll disconnect this. What you can also do is, you can change your material colors, base colors. Now I'm just waffling on, but and you know, make that base color instead. The light, and then the light itself can have different property colors, you know. And you get all kinds of cool effects. But yeah, entirely up to you. You can increase that gain, blow it out really much. With the materials as well. Oh, my bad. Click this. But however, we'll go on the materials. Perhaps I want to change the draw mode. And say, okay, I want just wireframe. Or lines. Change that. Which looks cool, you know. Create all these cool tunnel effects. Really simple. Not much effort in the sprites. Like I showed you at the beginning. Okay. Yeah, it'll be good to see what you do. You know, if you want, you can share some links in the comments below to your work or whatever you created. It'll be nice to see, or let me know if it's any help. But yeah, it's really simple scene, but just showing you how to go from this, from, say you want to bring something like this from Blender into, you know, into Ventuz, and then you have a ton of options to, you know, to add to it. But you can add objects within it along the path as you pass through, or you could add text, for example, into the tunnel. So if let's quickly switch to default view. I'll just disable that camera for now. Okay. So I'll just even set this to minus 90, so I'm looking down top of it. Add axis. You can add some 3D text, it doesn't really matter. Turn the bounding box on. Scale this up. Try to place this within the tunnel. Yeah, hopefully it's in the tunnel. Let's rotate this. No, it's not in the tunnel, as we can see there. Put it in. Scale it down now. Switch back to the camera view, and there you go. And you can have editable text in there, and you know, fly through it as long as you don't cut through it. I'll just change that move offset so we can come back to that text. There you go. And then adjust that again, so maybe I'll lower it so the camera doesn't click through it too much. But there you go. Yeah, looks cool, right? But yeah, you get the idea. So maybe you wanted to create like a title sequence, you know, and you pass in multiple names. So every time you pass it, you know, you could have changed that name. Perhaps I want to add another one or something, you know. Where's it gone? I've lost it, but you get the idea. Anyway, oh, I didn't duplicate it properly. Oh. Just change that offset again so you can see there it is. This. What I'd say is, if you're going to do that, you don't have to move on there, but then you can efficiently see work with that without it moving all the time. I guess if you turn the lighting on and shadows on, now you might see shadows cast from this. Really depends. I don't know how it will look, but let's drop that back. There you go. Hopefully that was useful. I think the press effects are a bit too strong, but let's, you know, reduce that amount. That title, there we go. Hello. But yeah, and that will just loop as you've seen already. Alright, enjoy your evening. Hopefully that was useful. It's just a small video, nothing too complicated. Bye bye.